I am Donika,
And I am Myra, and this is a Black Women Healing Podcast.
a space to discuss mental wellness,
A space to dive into soul care and vulnerability.
Here, we will support you on your journey as you focus on your healing,
while also giving you the work along the way.
Welcome to Black Women Healing Podcast. I am here to announce that our book, Let's Heal, a workbook designed for Black women with various modalities by your co-host Donika and Myra, is now at a storefront. And so the storefront is Urbana Goods. It's a community store that brings an upgraded experience of connecting with the community with small crafting gatherings and workshops and supporting other local businesses by housing and selling their merchandise, such as us. And they even sell some of your typical items from the local convenience store. Like, y'all, I literally bought some body butter, hair products, and a cute purse, all from this store, just to give you a little example. So when you have some time, check out Urbana Goods. It's located in Gardena, California. The actual address is 1756 West El Segundo, Gardena, California, 90249. You can put it in your GPS, whatever you need to do, but go ahead and make your way there and check us out.
Hey y'all, we're back with another episode of Black Women Healing Podcast, and as usual, we have a good guest, and this topic is real juicy. But before we hop in, we want to go ahead and talk about a quote. All my clients are reading All About Love right now. We're in the Bell Hooks series, and All About Love is the very first book. It's uncomfortable as hell to read. I even be telling my clients that I was a little uncomfortable. But over this past week, my client was getting down to the nitty gritty of self-esteem and the impacts of love on self-esteem. And so I wrote it down literally on my little notes on my side. This is where I see clients say my little notes. And so something I wrote down was, the wounded heart learns self-love by first overcoming low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And even reading that, like, it makes my heart like start going, ooh. And me and my client were really breaking down how self-love impacts self-esteem, and how when we're able to work on our own self-love and receive love, how that even empowers us. And so I've been trying to throw this quote into different conversations, and now we're here today, and I'm curious what you're thinking about it, Donika.
The wounded heart learns self-love by first overcoming low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it does. It feels, I mean, it kind of feels cringy to me, just like thinking like you can't even love you can't love yourself without loving yourself. It's kind of weird. I'm trying to process it. But like, yeah, this piece of low self-esteem, I think that in general, just thinking of my clients and even just people around me, I feel like it's the word low self-esteem is not used enough, maybe. But I mean, yeah, I'm thinking of it from all different types of like intersections of your life too, right? And like how that looks different. So maybe you don't experience low self-esteem in the workplace, but showing up in a relationship you do, or maybe in your home, in your space, and maybe the way that looks like and how you show up and taking care of your space, maybe you've experienced low self-esteem, or whatever it is, like how it looks different in these different spaces too, and how that all comes together. And when I hear like the wounded heart, I think of relationships with yourself. I feel like that's what this talking more about, like your self-love. But I can't help to think about how low self-esteem and self-love impacts your relationships with other people. But I feel like this quote is talking about you, which is good. But yeah, like, I mean, you have to feel good about yourself and like protecting your heart, and also like really, what is the word I'm looking for? What's it called when you go back in time? And I mean, it's called heal. Like healing. It's called Black Women Healing Pod. It's called healing. Yeah. Yeah, that right there. Like, you have to heal some things. But I know it's a lot of words. What are you thinking, Candice, about this quote?
Listen, it hit home. First of all, I love Bell Hooks, so all of the quotes would be like,
yes,
woo. But it hit home because I think, to your point, Donika, the wounding often comes from the previous relationships, parent relationships, community relationships, romantic, like platonic, all of that. And you learn through those relationships whether or not you're worthy. like inherently worthy of good things, inherently worthy of love. Now, relationships can't determine that, but that's the evidence you get along the way. And so when you're wounded, you're like, oh, I got to repair all of that before I even get to self-love. Like, I got to divest from all these things I started to buy into about myself, all of these things that made me think I was flawed, or made me think I was broken, or made me think that I wasn't enough. I have to repair all of that before I even get to self-love. So it's differentiating for me, the repair work of rebuilding your self-esteem after living in a racist and sexist and heterosexist and all those things world. And then self-love is like that practice, because, you know, Bell Hooks breaks it down like love ain't just an emotion you feel, it's a practice. And so it's like, before you get to the practice in any consistent way, you got to kind of repair some things. And so that's why I love y'all's podcast, because that healing process is the repair process, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I wanted to say.
Even just hearing you break that down makes me like, gives me chills. And I was telling my client, like, I have like this love-hate relationships with bell hooks works, but hate in the best way possible. Cause it's like, I love that, like, I'm learning this, but I hate that it's like so in your face. Like,
And you
she's
get
gonna
read
slap
for filthy
all
filth.
for real, like reading through it, I'm like, oh my gosh,
Like,
I gotta read this, but at the same time, I don't want to. Like, my client
you
was
go
saying,
at me from the dead. Like,
my client was like, you said read chapter 3 and 4, but I just couldn't do it. I read 3 and I gave it all I got, but 4 is not gonna see me this week. It's gonna have to wait next week. And I was like, I'm right there with you.
yeah, you got to take that one chapter at a time. So I really appreciate you using that bibliotherapy, because a lot of clients, they need something to hold on to. And that one chapter is enough.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for engaging in that with us. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. So today we have Dr. Candice Nicole Hargons. She is an award-winning associate professor of counseling psychology at the University of Kentucky, where she studies sexual wellness and liberation. She is the host of Fuck the System, a sexual liberation podcast, and How to Love a Human, a liberation podcast that asks people with multiple marginalized identities what the world would be like if it loved them. She has published over 50 research articles and has been featured in the Huffington Post, the APA Monitor, Good Housekeeping, Women's Health, Blvd, Cosmopolitan, and the New York Times. Her debut book, Good Sex, will be published by Row House February 2025. Wow, this bio is bomb.
Thank you.
I get it now. Like, okay, yeah, absolutely. Podcast, I'm seeing it, I'm hearing it. Research articles, University of Kentucky. I remember this bio now. Okay, because I don't know if you know, but I'm from Kentucky. I'm from
I
Louisville,
did not know that. What part?
Louisville. I'm from
Oh,
Louisville.
I live in Louisville.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'd be commuting back and forth, because Louisville got a little bit more of us, and I needed that in my life.
Absolutely. My freshman year, I went to University of Kentucky too.
Shut up.
And then I transferred to University of Louisville, and then moved out here for my master's. Yep. But this is so nice to like, that that we don't have connection, but how we're like actually getting
it's a small world.
Yeah, no, that's wild.
Is your family still here?
Yeah, all my family's still in Louisville. Actually, I'll be there in September. So
nice.
This is wild. Okay, well, thank you so much, Dr. Candice Nicole Hargons, for coming in today and joining us. And so you all, today we're going to talk about good sex. So how did the topic of good sex become an interest for you?
Okay, I'm gonna take you way back in time to the mid-90s when I was coming up. And I've always been a sexually precocious person. So very early on, I was like, oh, when am I going to develop boobs? And when is my body going to change? And I wanted to find out about all of that good stuff. And so my grandma had a set of Encyclopedia Britannica, and I was in there just looking through the pages, figuring out like, okay, what is puberty? What are hormones? And all of this. So like that biological side of it. But then, I grew up in the hip hop era. We just celebrated the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And so I came up with Foxy Brown and Lil' Kim and women who were talking about sex and being empowered around their sexualities or disempowered around their sexualities, and some of the hip hop that I was listening to, but challenging it, trying to work through that. And so thinking about how I carried all of that I always wanted to be somebody that was informed. I was a really smart Black girl in a world that doesn't really support really smart Black girls. And so I was like, well, let me find the information on my own. And that part of the process, in addition to my granddad having a stash of porn and the VHS tapes in the back and the Holy Bible, which my grandmother was bumping, like all of these things were like related to, or they talked about, or tried to prevent you from having sex or thinking about sex. But I was like, nah, I want to learn everything I can learn. So for me, it started very early on. And then for the evolution of my career, I ended up, like, I knew I wanted to be a psychologist at 16, and I wanted to do sex therapy. When I became like when I was in my master's program, I was like, I'm coming to do sex therapy. I want to work with clients around sex. And then one of my professors was like, I really think you could be a great professor. And so that helped introduce me to the research side, because I didn't even think about the research side of the career. I just wanted to talk to people about it. So when I found out sex research was a career, I was like, oh, I can do both as a psychologist. Bet. And so that's kind of the way the journey went.
Yes. No, I love to hear it. I think that it's beautiful when we know what we want to do sometimes. And
And sometimes I went a different routes.
Oh, you did?
But
okay. But
yeah.
you landed, but you came back.
Yes. I taught high school English for a few years. You had to take a couple turns here and there.
But it came back, full circle. Wow. So I mean, in thinking of that, I do, like you just said, like it is most definitely like hid from us, the topic of sex in general. Even people probably listening to this, even like people who are, adults,
Yep.
hearing like good sex, those words probably like, oh, whoa. Or maybe even depending on our our title, it might either people are more interested or people get kind of like scared away from it, right?
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
And so
because they feel like if they're talking about sex, they're doing something wrong, right? Because we get these messages about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, and sometimes they mess up our ability to talk about things that are really meaningful and important to us.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So it sounds like for you though, and thinking of like your comfortability with it, a lot of it had to do with like your own like search for, like you just said, like going to school and finding communities. Like it doesn't sound like you kind of had that in your own community growing up, of like that liberation piece of it.
No, I think people were behaving in ways that were more sexually liberated than they wanted me to behave. So they were acting in sexual ways. Like, I come from a family system where I don't share the same two parents with any of my siblings, so people were doing them.
Do what I say, not as I do.
Thank you. And all of that, it came back to, I think at the core of it, wanting to protect me, wanting to ensure that as a Black girl, I got to college and realized the best things in life, but never given the conversation of like, you can be both. You can be a sexual person and a successful person. You don't have to be one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So in talking about this next question, it says, can you share with our guests and us the top 5 components of good sex and why?
Okay, so me and my team did a research study where we surveyed like 500 Black people and asked them, tell me the top 3 words that define good sex for you. And so when we put it all together, we analyzed those data. We got 20 words, but the top 5 are passionate, intimate, fun, pleasurable, and satisfying. So those top 5 were the things that our sample of Black people throughout the United States felt like really meant something when it came to good sex. And passionate was number 1 by far. Like over a third of the people were like, we want passionate. That makes the big difference. And then the rest were like 20%, 18%, 14%, stuff like that.
I guess
so when y'all hear those, do any of them resonate? Like, yeah, I like that one. Or it's like, no, they don't really matter to me.
I mean, yeah. I mean, when I'm listening to you say this and you talk about passionate being the top, I kind of feel like the rest of them don't really make sense without being passionate, if it makes sense.
Exactly.
Like it for it to be satisfying, pleasurable, fun, intimate, it literally it needs to be.
Really? See, that's interesting. These are good ways to talk about it, because for me, it's like you can be pleasurable and it can be satisfying and not passionate, but it depends on how you think about passionate. Like everybody defines it
Exactly what you
differently.
think about passion. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true what you think about passion. But yeah, no. I mean, I'm sitting in it. I'm sitting in these words.
Yeah. I'm curious, your thoughts on the ways that sex impacts one's self-esteem.
I think that it can be impactful. It doesn't always have to be. So sometimes people use sex as a vehicle for healing, and sometimes they use it as a vehicle for destruction. And that all relates to self-esteem. Like if you feel inherently worthy of goodness, of pleasure, of sex, if you have a sense of pleasure worthiness, then the way you engage sex will be facilitative to your self-esteem. So you won't partner with people who aren't engaging in reciprocal goodness and sharing and stuff like that. You won't partner people who humiliate you or treat you as if you're less than because you made a decision to have sex. But on the other side of it, like if you are experiencing high self-esteem and you're thinking through your sexual decisions from that place, you have a good solid sexual self-awareness, then the decisions you make about sex can really enhance and enrich your life overall, because there's so many health benefits to good sex, and a lot of people don't realize them because of the context in which they're engaging in sex.
Yeah, I'm curious your thoughts about because I've been in a lot of conversations about how sex with yourself impacts your self-esteem, and I'm curious to see your thoughts about that. And because I've heard from people that like once you really get into the rhythm of being able to pleasure yourself, when you feel the need to go out and find somebody, but instead of taking that time to yourself, like it does something for you. So I'm curious to hear that from your thoughts.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so it depends on a few things.
Okay.
The messages you got about solo sex, the ones you got growing up and the ones you got in adulthood might be different, but holistically, the messages you got, and then whether or not you think solo sex is something you do before you have a partner or while you have a partner, right? So we just did these papers. One is on Black women and another is on Black men. The one on Black men is under review right now, but we have the one on Black women out. We talk about the messages Black women got about solo sex or masturbation. And y'all can only imagine. Let me just ask you to guess where you think most of the messages came from.
Yo, parents, let me tell y'all, I had a traumatizing experience. My mom, I don't care about telling nobody this. My mom walked in on me having solo sex and took me to the doctor and told me to tell the doctor what I was doing. And when I told the doctor was like, ma'am, I need you to step out.
Thank you.
What's about to happen? And the doctor had a whole conversation with me about how healthy it was.
Yes.
How I was making a healthy decision with myself. Make sure you wash your hands. X, Y, and Z thing when you do decide to have penetration sex,
yes,
right? Like these are some of the things you can do to be healthy. This is my number to contact me. If my mom comes in and is like, what did y'all talk about?
Shout out to your doctor though for handling that.
I don't think it's appropriate to tell you, ma'am. And my mom was like, okay.
So yeah. Your mom panicked basically. She hit the panic button. She hit the panic button.
You should have saw when she came back in, she was shaking in her boots.
But it goes to show what she's learned, right? The fact that she take you to the doctor for what? You know, like what?
Right. Take me to the doctor. Urgent care. I was
not the urgent care.
Oh my goodness.
I thought I was in trouble. I'm like, what did I do? I was so confused.
She was trying to fix you. She thought it was
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So that story resonates though. I know so many people are going to listen to it and be like, girl, yes, because the shame messages that Black women and girls got around solo sex, the sin messages, the taboo messages, so few of us got messages. And I'm so happy your doctor stood in the gap for you. Messages that it's normal, that it's healthy, that it can facilitate your own sense of sexual self-awareness, that is pleasurable, that, you know, you deserve that type of pleasure. And it's one of the healthiest acts a young person can choose if they're thinking about sex. and they don't yet feel ready to do the things that might be with partnered sex, or, so I was like that, and I wasn't surprised by any of the findings. I'm sure most people wouldn't be. But when we did the study for Black men, I think, and y'all tell me if you've heard this before, they believed that solo sex was for lesser men. So you only do it if you don't have a good partner or someone to have sex with. But if you have someone to have sex with, that's the preferred main way. Whereas for a lot of women, we are more likely to experience pleasure and orgasm in solo sex than partner sex. So it's almost flip-flop.
The stigma of even thinking about masturbation or solo sex for young boys is more accepted. It's even oh yeah, he's in the bathroom, that's fine, but you only are supposed to do that for so long because you're supposed to find somebody to do it with, right?
Yes.
But then you think of the opposite side where women, it's you're not supposed to do this now, so no solo or even with people, and if you don't talk about it, right? So it's in some ways, I'm guessing the masturbation for a woman is this is the safest space that you could really have. Nobody really wants you to do it. It needs to be a secret. Don't talk about it, and you really don't need to talk about having sex with other people in general. But I think for men, it's most definitely it's different. Right. Yeah. It's encouraged. You could do it yourself. You still don't talk about it. Like I said, growing up, I just remember for the young boys, it's oh, he's been in the bathroom for a minute. You never heard that about young girls though. Even though it's happening. Yep. You never heard, oh, they're in their room or whatever in the bathroom. No. But boys, oh yeah. Leave him alone. Let him do his thing. And then, but again, it's not forever. It's not encouraged. You don't hear about oh yeah, that grown man is in the bathroom, right? Right. When grown men be in the bathroom all the time. So, oh yeah. So it's so normal. Most people in our study, over 80% of the women and only one of the men said so I guess 99% of the men said that they engaged in solo sex. So we know it's a common behavior. It's totally normal. And at the same time, all of those negative messages about it make people ashamed to talk about it. So then you think you're the only one doing it. And it's not at all. I made my solo sexual debut around 8 or 9, and it's for me, that felt like a good time. And I learned a lot about my body before I made my partner's sexual debut. But for a lot of girls and women that I've met, it was 16 or 21 or just now in their 30s or 40s after a lifetime of being with people who didn't understand their body and they didn't understand their own body either. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm thinking of how have people in your life responded to this interest and work around sex? Yeah, I tend to feel pretty supported about it. So when I shared that like I said, I taught high school for a few years. And then when I shared I was going back to school to be a sex therapist, my mom was like, oh, is that a career? But after that, she was like, oh, okay, well, I know whatever you choose to do, you're going to be successful at it. So, do it. And then I was telling my grandma, actually not too long ago when I got my book deal, I was like, grandma, about to write my first book. And she was like, what the book going to be about? And I was like, good sex. She was like, okay, then. One word. Yeah, it can mean anything with a Black grandma. But she was like, okay, then. She was like, well, shoot, some people gonna need to read it. It's like, yes, they will. That's actually really beautiful to hear, sometimes it don't take too much. Even that, being able to say, yeah, I already know you're gonna be good at it or whatever. That's nice that you've had that. What about, I'm guessing even colleagues in different spaces or in different communities, when they find this out about you, this is the type of work you do they then want to ask questions, or yes, do they then think you're this, you need to be having sex all the time, you need to is that listen, and they do be asking questions. So I was sitting at a board meeting, so I'm on the board of the American Psychological Association. We were having a board meeting and they were like, okay, so how's the book writing coming along? And somebody was like, what you writing the book about? I was like, good sex. And they were like,
that is a topic that's so necessary. And then for like 30 minutes, we just had conversations and people were like, and this is the messages I got, and this is what I learned. And now I'm learning again at this stage in my life. And they're all older than me. They're more senior colleagues than I am. But they didn't get to talk about that when they were coming up in their training programs, right? I don't know about y'all. Y'all are in MFT programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or done with your programs.
Oh yeah, no, we're done. Yeah.
Yeah. And so probably you're more likely to get a sex therapy class than we are as psychologists. And it's like, what? So, you know, a lot of them didn't have that training. And so it's been very well received. I can say it's harder as a researcher to get your work published in mainstream journals because people are still navigating like the taboo around that. So I have to publish in specialty journals that speak to sexual health research more so. But overall, like, you know, I just try to make a way for it to move into the profession and be normalized so that people like, it's another normal part of human functioning.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, as you reflect, how do you feel like this work has impacted like your life, your romantic interactions, just like us as a whole? Because my mind is going, but just follow me. My mind is going back to slavery, and it's making me think about how sex was not our choice.
Yep.
And now that you're talking about good sex, almost like reclaiming like
yes,
our bodies in a way, in a very like ancestral way, and just thinking about like our ancestors and this being like a form of liberation for us in 2023. Like that's where my mind is going. But
that's where my mind is. It always
Okay.
is. And that's where, so even when I start some of my articles, I have to set that context. Like, this is what the experience of Black people was around their sexual identities. A lot of times, you know, there was sexual rape, coercion, assault. We didn't have agency over our bodies because people thought we were chattel. And so for us to experience good sex and to reclaim that, that means even we're talking back to a lot of these sexual stereotypes. So once slavery ended, the way we stereotyped Black women and Black men and Black trans and queer people around sexualities, it was like, we got to reclaim that too. So now that we have agency, we have to figure out how we're navigating these stereotypes. So all of it is, for me, liberation work. But a lot of times people ask me, like, what does that mean, you know, in my own life? And I always let people know, like, I'm a human just like everybody else. Like, I have a lot of skill, I have a lot of knowledge, but day to day, I'm living a life like I'm raising a toddler with my husband. Sometimes we be like, nah, this ain't it. You know, we got to learn again and be like, all right, what are we going to do differently? Now, the good thing is I can go back to my books or my practice and be like, all right, here, let's try some new stuff. But no, sometimes I don't be in the mood either. People just expect you to, you know, always want to do it and stuff like that. And it's like, no, you humans gonna have ebbs and flows and desire. And it doesn't matter if you're a sex researcher or a sex therapist. Like, that's just what we be experiencing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Anika, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of, I feel like this is going back a little bit, but like, it makes me, because you had brought up about this piece of sometimes people utilizing sex to heal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like this feeling of liberation and having sex and healing. And I'm just wondering, like, your viewpoint on how this could be done. I want to say in like the healthiest way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you will talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I'm just having sex. It's just what it is. But really it's a lot deeper than that.
Yeah.
And maybe there is a liberation to it, but maybe it's not coming from this more healing of the liberation, right? What are your thoughts on that? How people can, if people are experiencing that now, or how can people navigate that? What do you think?
Yeah. You got to be self-reflective. And I know a lot of people don't even have time because of capitalism, and you got to work so hard and do so many things to sit down and think like, why am I making the choices I'm making? What's informing those choices? So I always have clients that I work with think through like how you're making your sexual decisions. Are you really feeling like it's your decision, or do you feel obligated? Are you feeling like it's your decision, or do you feel like you're not going to be loved if you don't? You know, like, and when you get to the place where you can make your sexual choices from a place of inherent worthiness and wholeness, your sexual choice can be abstinence for years if that works for you. And it's not like I'm a bad person if I have sex, so I'm abstaining. It's like, no, this is just not a season in my life where I want to have sex for whatever reason, but I know I'm whole and worthy with or without it. Or you can have sex with multiple partners and kinky ways and all of these things, but it's coming from a place of wellness and a sense of sexual self-awareness where it isn't, I feel like I must do this, or I don't have control over my sexual desire and urges and drives. But, these are really intentional choices I'm making every day. And most of us have been on various ends of the spectrum, right? Because nobody comes into the world fully perfect and knowing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So helping people have a lot of compassion around that. So, okay, when I was in my teens, I made these type of choices. In my 20s, I want to make different types of choices. In my 30s, I'm evolving. It's going to look like this. In my 40s, I devolved a little bit, and then it's coming back,
Absolutely. Thank you so much for explaining that. To be honest, I don't think about I've got to ask someone, especially with like your expertise, that question. And the way you explained it was very digestible.
Thank you.
And I think for sure it's helpful to hear, because I think you run into that sometimes where people are like, oh yeah, I'm sexually liberated. And it's like, that's awesome. But like you said, are you being reflective?
Yeah.
Like do you feel comfortable in these decisions? Do you know what
Because a
it
lot of people get sex positivity and sexual liberation mixed
that's what,
up,
yeah,
right?
that's what it
They're
yeah.
like, I think it means I just gotta bust it wide open for everybody. And it's like, it could mean that, or it could mean something totally different for you based on your values and what works for you at this stage in your life. And a lot of people, like even my friends who are Christian, or people who are, like they choose abstinence for moral or religious reasons, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that choice either. Some people are asexual and they don't have sexual desire, romantic desire at all. There's nothing wrong with that life and that embodiment of sexuality either. It's just, are you reflective enough to say, this is where that came from? So for my Christian girlies, or for the girls who were like, I really want to wait till marriage, I'm like, are you doing that because you think that modesty is going to buy you something? Or are you thinking that that's a good choice for you because it feels healthiest and it feels congruent with how you want to live your life?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so
Wow,
much.
we needed you as a guest. This was good. This is such a good breakdown of so many different things on how we're thinking about sex. And I don't feel like we have these conversations enough.
We don't.
Right? Like, we need to be talking about this more and being more open with it.
And especially across generations, right? Like me having this conversation in my 40s with 20-year-olds, you people in their 20s or people in their teens, means that, they're going to look to me in a different way than they would appear. And it's like, okay, if I'm saying things that are healing and normative and affirming, that holds weight, and that's important. And then it can, map on to how they choose to navigate their life for the next 15 years.
Yes.
Exactly. I'm curious, as you just like reflect on the episode and your work, what takeaways you have for our listeners. Like, it can be anything, but I know you got something, so I'm all ears.
Yeah. Okay. So for the listeners, I have an activity that I like to encourage my clients to do. And usually when I'm on podcasts, I encourage folks to do it. It's real simple. It's called yes, no, maybe so. And so you just get a piece of paper, or you can use your phone, whatever works best for you. And in 3 columns, you got your yes column, you got your maybe so column, and you got your no column. And these are all of the things related to sex and your sexuality that you want to be clear about. So your yes column is like, yes, I want to do that. I've never done it before, but I know I want to try. Or yes, I have done it. We'll do it again and again and again. I enjoy this. All the things that feel like emphatic yes, you put in that column. And then the no column is like, did it once, we'll never do it again, or don't even have to do it because I already know this ain't that. You put that in your no column and list those things. And then your maybe so column is like, okay, it depends on the context. Like, am I on vacation? It could be something different, and like, it depends on who it is, or is it your birthday? Is it my birthday? Like it could be like contextual. So you put the maybe so's in that list. It's like, I'm gonna wait till marriage on this one. Other things I'm gonna do, like it just depends on your context. So you write that list down for yourself. And if you're partnered, you can work with your partner on their list too. Like they can do their list and you bring it together and you can talk. But if you're not partnered, it's still important for you to know, because most of us have never had a chance to sit down and say, what do I actually like sexually? What do I not like at all sexually? And what am I curious about or open to, depending on what the context is? And so everybody do a yes, no, maybe so list. If you got some good friends that you can talk to, like, and a couple of y'all do it together, that's also a nice way to have community and to have these conversations started.
I want to say thank you for your language and the way you talk about things, because you use very inclusive language. I'm sure you might be aware of that, or you probably are aware of that.
I'm very trying to.
Yeah, you use very inclusive language that is easy to follow, and the information that you're providing is easy to digest. And I just want to thank you for that, because sometimes I interact with people, and yes, I'm a licensed therapist too, but sometimes I interact with people and I'm like, I'm going to have to Google this when we're done talking, or I'm like, I don't know what we just talked about, but all right, you got it.
Take
So
some time. Yeah, it takes some time. But it's like, as you're saying it, yeah, I agree with Myra. It's like clicking. It's making sense. Like it's coming through. So
because if you're listen, this is the way I operate in my work. If my grandma can't understand it, who is not a college educated woman, then what am I doing?
Yeah.
My goal in coming into the academy was to bring stuff back home. It wasn't to get it and hoard it, for people who have a lot of privilege and status.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we thank you so much, and that activity.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I feel like this might need to be a part 2.
We can definitely do a part 2.
Yes, we got to talk about the book. You didn't talk about the book, really. What is it called? Where can we find it? A little bit more details.
Look, the book is coming out February 2025, so we got a little time. I'm writing now, and it's called Good Sex. So I'm breaking down all of these things that we talked about in, like we just said, digestible ways, using stories, composites of clients. I never use like a single client's experience, but like composites of clients or composites of the research that I have written and read, and some of the participants that I work with, because I do qualitative research. So I like to talk to people about their lives and their stories, and putting that in so that you get a story that you can resonate with. And then you get some history and some background and some context, like you were talking about, Myra, like, where did this come from in the first place? Why do we think like this? What do we have to go through to get here? And then you get some tips and some skills and some realistic timelines, because you know how some of the self-help books be like, all right, 3 days, then your life is going to change.
Like, sign me up.
Like that. 3 days later, you look the same. And it's like, nah, this is going to take 6 months, sis. Or do you have the time? And if you don't, have some compassion, just set the time aside later, because I'm going to be honest with you about how much time it takes to deprogram from all of these scripts.
Yeah, it's realistic. Yeah, no, I love that. And so, yeah, we most definitely, once it gets closer, or just in general, I feel like this is worthy of a part 2. It's so much to continue. Like Myra said, we need to continue talking about this, but this was a great start.
Thank you.
So yeah, we thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.